Hey guys. Well, it is like 10 p.m. Uh, I woke up this morning and I don't know, I just didn't want to do anything. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to my book for a little bit. And inevitably, when this kind of happens, well, it's 10 o'clock and I'm making my first video of the day. Um, I Part of it is like I really like the book I'm listening to, but I don't know. I just feel so lost right now. And yeah, it's just my motivation's at like zero today. And I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm just struggling. And so, I'm making this, if nothing else, to just document how I'm feeling today. Um, but yeah, so at first I was like, okay, it's like 8:30. I'm going to listen to my book for like an hour or two. And then the hour or two turned into, well, it's 12 o'clock. Uh, do I want to record something right now? And I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk later, so I'll just record then. And then 2 o'clock rolls around, and I'm like, ugh, I just don't want to do anything. And my book's really nice, and I'm just vibing. And so I'm like, well, I still have until like 5 o'clock. Um, and then 5 o'clock rolls around, and I just feel fucking awful. um, I ate my veg in the morning, but then I don't know, I just didn't follow up with any like really healthy food. I mean, I had some chicken, and I'm starting to think like maybe I should be really rethinking the like meat thing. Um, because I don't know, it's just I don't know, it's just I feel just off, and I know that sleep and food make a huge difference when it comes to my mental and whether I'm tired or not, whether the food, like if I'm eating really healthy, then the food kind of snowballs me plus the the sleeping well, but the opposite's true. So, yeah. Um so 5 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, I just make another bad decision of, well, I'll just eat like a little bit of whatever's in here. I don't even want to go out. And then I'm like, well, what time does sunset happen? Because maybe I can go for a walk before sunset. And then I was like, well, it's 7 o'clock. Should I go for a walk? And I'm like, okay, I can at least go for a walk. Even if I'm not going to film anything on the walk, I can at least go for a walk and listen to the book. And so I'm like, all right. And so I got up and I did a walk. It was like a 45-minute walk, very short. like 5,200 or 5,300 steps. So nothing too strenuous. And, it helped a little bit. But man, like whenever I can tell when food is affecting me because my eyes feel really heavy and tired. Like I want to just close them. Um, that coupled with, a lot of screen time. And so it's kind of like, oh, gosh. Um, I don't know. And I was thinking about like what I want to ask the person tomorrow that I'm gonna go see, and it's like I'm not sure. I have some ideas, but I think I'm just gonna write them down and then just ask. But this funk that I'm in, I'm pretty sure it's food and sleep related because my sleep hasn't been great. Like I've been getting a decent amount of sleep, but I've been waking up and it's just like I don't know. Something's just not right with it. Um, and then the food. Like I can tell that the food's just not right either. Uh, and when those two things kind of hit me at the same time, I just like I lose all motivation. I lose all like sense of existence, and I just want to lay there. Um, and so I know that's kind of symbolizing to me that there's some sort of deficiency plus like I'm starting to question like I've heard about how there's all sorts of oh my gosh. I there's hold on. I'm going to pause. Oh, I think it's okay. The fire alarm went off, but I think we're fine. I'm gonna pause just in case. Hold on. Unpaused. Um, Everything's fine. So I think they were cooking like grilled cheese or something, and it just burned. But yeah, something that I kind of want to explain because this may seem because I know all the steps. So I've done all the steps. I've shown all the steps. So I'm aware of the steps needed in order to feel better. And something I kind of want to explain while I'm feeling what I'm feeling. There's this I've felt it very distinctly on numerous occasions where there will be like a pivotal moment that I can feel in my decision making. And there will be like a war inside between doing the thing I know will help the situation and doing the thing that makes me feel comfortable. And they are distinctly different. I'll give you an example. This morning, I almost just ordered DoorDash instead of eating the healthy food downstairs. The vegetables and all the other stuff. So I had my order plotted, and I was about to like get it. And then I had this like thought of like, you really should be eating vegetables. The vegetables, you're not going to be getting your steamed vegetables if you do this, and you're going to feel worse. And I literally thought about this for like 20 minutes, where I'm like, I'm not even kidding you. It's like I'm on the phone and I have my order in, and then I put the phone down, and then I walk around, and then I go halfway downstairs to go and get the vegetables, and then I come back into the room, and then I delete the thing on my phone, and then I reorder something on my phone, but then I don't accept, and then I walk back downstairs, and it's literally like a fight that's happening, because it's like I know what helps me. And it's like I have this like really big fight, and I succeed in getting the healthy food eaten, and then immediately after, the next fight that shows up, I just lose. And I think about them as like there's a war, and the board constantly is shifting. Like the battle lines are shifting. Some battles are won, some battles are lost, and it's the overall trajectory, which is like the state of where I'm at. Where if I keep consistently advancing, even if I lose some battles, there's consistent advancement and I do really well. And then on the flip side, if I keep consistently lose battles, I keep feeling worse. And so it's really hard to consecutively win battle after battle in a very short period of time, because it's like I exerted a lot of willpower to eat the vegetables, and then I just didn't have enough willpower in order to not do the other things. And so this is why I think it's so important, and this is why I've kind of consistently been talking about what are the days that I'm really, really on point. It's the very start of the day when I get certain things done. That it lines everything up so that I don't have to expend willpower to do anything. It's just all falling in line. If I don't have to think about it, then I'm not doing a battle at all. It just happens. So this is why I've explained how important it is to have very consistent small habits that you build into a little structure that you can use to push yourself in a direction you want to go, whatever the direction is, right? So there's that. Also, the putting it off for a few hours, the procrastination, really, like, it's really sinister. Because if you think about what I just explained about how my day progressed, my initial plan was I was going to just read for an hour. And then I was going to go and do stuff for the day. And then it just kind of snowballed past that. So this is why I've found getting things done in the morning, and I'm not saying this is the end all be all, I'm saying for me, getting things done in the morning makes it to where in the evening I don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. Now, this kind of brings me to something I've kind of observed. I'm thinking, just to be clear, I don't think inherently the meat products are bad. What I think is happening is I'm eating meat products that are also on the scale of really healthy meat products versus not healthy meat products, are on the not healthy side. Just like how you can eat vegan but still eat really garbage product. So it's a similar kind of scenario of like, you can have really healthy vegan options and you can have really unhealthy vegan options. Same thing with meat. And so now I'm kind of like unsure if it's the meat or if it's the garbage on the meat, or if it's both. And then there's also a third option, which is, I've heard that there is a lot of things, if I'm putting it lightly, that are injected into animals in order to stave off diseases and stop them from like basically getting sick at all. Increase like production of like different meat, all this stuff. And that coupled with the type of food that these animals are eating, I think is actually... So, okay, here, let me lay out a scenario here, okay? There's a big difference between going out into the forest and finding a deer in the forest, killing the deer, and then eating deer meat, versus, let's say someone is doing like a deer pen where they're raising the deer and then slaughtering them, like they are for cows or whatever. There's a huge difference between the two, but that's the surface level. Everyone kind of knows that there's a difference, even if you don't know specifically on like how much of a difference it is, okay? So I'm just going to use numbers, and I'm making up the numbers, okay? But I'm just trying to use a point here. So let's say deer at a baseline have 100 points, where the higher the point value, the more healthy the meat is, okay? They start at 100. That's the cap that you can get out of deer meat. And then wild versus farm raised. Maybe you cut it in half on how healthy that deer is going to be. Because inevitably, deer graze really large stretches of forest or fields or whatever. And they pick kind of the best, like, grass and different food that they eat, vegetation. And then So like that's the baseline. Maybe you lose like half the efficacy because it's farm raised, okay? And that's, we'll say that the farm raised at baseline is like, that's the best you can get farm raised wise. Because it'll never be the same as the wild deer that was out in the woods doing its thing. You can try, but it's never going to be the same. Um, so then you introduce, for wild deer, the terrain that they live in could differ greatly too. So if they live in a forest that's completely untouched, humans aren't anywhere near the forest, all the water and the habitat is all very like preserved, and there is no human intervention. You can get the maximum 100 out of 100 out of that deer, but most land is not going to be like that. So maybe the average deer is only actually at a 70 or 75 because the land and like, there's people, there's pollution, the waters aren't always great because maybe, there's a company that's like pumping chemicals into the river, or there's communities nearby and they like wash their cars and do all sorts of other stuff that like put pollution into the water source. So the deer is not really like having the best sources to come from. So maybe it's only like 70 out of 100 for the wild deer. Same thing can happen for the farm raised deer. If we're saying 50 is like the highest possible scenario for this farm raised deer, and maybe it's higher, maybe it's 70, but the starting high point, almost no company is going to raise the deer in the highest possible setting, because guess what? That costs a lot of money. It doesn't yield a lot. So there's really like no incentive for a company to do that. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, let's spend a bunch of research trying to figure out the best way to cram these deer in so that we can get decent meat, and then throw it out there, because we'll get like 10 times the amount of meat. If it's average meat, people will still buy it even though it's not premium meat, because in order for us to want to sell premium meat, we need to sell it at like 10 or 20 times the amount that we would sell this like average meat at, in order to get the same level of profit. So they're going to cut corners. They're going to be like, okay, well, we do have a cornfield down the street that we use to farm corn, so we can use the corn like scraps as a means to feed these deer. What else can we do? Well, they get sick when they're too like enclosed, but if we give them a little shot, we'll be able to keep them healthy. And you only need to do the shot once every 6 months. So like, that seems pretty reasonable. You just put them in a little stall, do a and you're done. And then you're like, okay, well, they're not running around much, so they get fatter. Well, that's great because that's more meat. And oh, well, people like, not super fatty meat, but it's not the best meat quality anyway, so it's okay. And, doesn't really matter. So you see how these corner cutting methods can start lowering the quality even more. And by the time you're done, they're like, okay, well, the government said we have to do this, so we'll maintain the minimum standards that are allowed by law, and that's it. We will not go any higher than that because it cuts into our profits. If we're forced to do something different, then we'll do something different. Otherwise, we're just gonna cut as many corners as we can because we want to make more money. That's the whole goal of the company. And so by the time you're done, you might have like meat that's like 10% of like they say it's average quality, maybe 20%, but it's like average quality relative to the 70%. So, you're talking like 35, 30, 20, you're looking at like a very small percentage of the health total that you could have for a really healthy deer. And so all these factors get put in, and we're not even talking about the cut of the meat. We're assuming that you're getting the best cut from whatever deer you're eating. But that's not actually the case. Most of the deer is not the best cut. It's not the healthiest cut. Sorry, I almost swallowed my saliva in the wrong way. So, now, let's say the best cut of meat is that 100 for the deer. But the worst cut of meat could have like a 10 within that same healthy deer. So now you're talking about average meat with an average cut on an average farming thing where they're cutting corners, and suddenly that 20 points now turns into like 10 points or 5 points out of 100. And so now you're getting deer that's like way below quality that you'd like expect or think. And it's not necessarily any one thing's fault. It's not the company's fault that they want to cut corners, because guess what? They're a company that's pursuing profit. So this is their MO. And there's nothing inherently wrong with them following their cord of wanting to make more money. The problem is there are no government oversights that protect the citizen from getting shit meat, right? So, this is why corporations have just ran rampant with doing whatever the hell they want to the population, with having garbage food with all sorts of garbage ingredients, because there's no oversight. The oversight that does exist is not enough. It's like, obviously there is actual oversight, but I'm saying, like, if we're saying that in order to get 100% of the quality for like a deer, you would have to have like 100% oversight. The oversight's like 5 out of 100. It's like there, but it's like companies have figured out how to get around it. They've used corporate kind of lobbying and lawyers and all sorts of things, because they'll spend a ton of money to like just circumvent the rules. Because at the end of the day, they just want to, that they'll spend tons of money trying to figure out the way to make the most money. And if it means avoiding all the rules and regulations, and, well, we're in a gray area, and since, lawmakers can never catch up to the gray area, we can always stay in the gray area, and we're going to save way more money doing that than if we were to implement all the rules they want. So, this is why you get a scenario where a $5 chicken at Costco, suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, the list of ingredients is this long, and it has like, and this is ingredients to cook it. We're not even talking about the quality of where the chicken was from, all this other stuff. Now, granted, most people don't have the option of going to a farm and getting a really like a 70% out of 100, like the best chicken you can get from a farm raised chicken, right? That's just not possible. Same thing with eggs. Real eggs versus the processed eggs are so drastically different in nutrient profile and all of that stuff that it's like mind blowing. But most people don't have access to the really crazy eggs. And so this is kind of where you run into a scenario where it's all of these little stacking variables, and this is just one thing. Now, this is going back to what I was kind of saying. The reason that I'm questioning the meat is not because of the meat itself, but because I know that even if they fuck with vegetables, which they do, in order to make them healthier, grow better, whatever, there's only so much they can do to a raw vegetable, because the raw vegetables, guess what? It's raw. And so this is why, at its base, whole foods are superior to processed foods. Not because individually there's like some evil thing happening and, whatever. It's because all the steps compound. And so you may start with a really good product. Chicken. We'll give you an example. A wild chicken is probably incredibly healthy for you, and same with the wild chicken eggs, same with like different types of meat like fish, so on and so forth. However, the more steps of processing and the more human intervention that happens to a lot of these products, the lower the relative like health of the product is. And so you'll end up in a scenario where it's like maybe there's 100 steps of like lowering quality, where each one's maybe a 0.1% difference. Not a big deal. But when all stacked up together, makes a huge deal and totally like changes the game. So this is why I think relatively like the meat stuff versus the vegetable stuff, this is where I'm thinking vegan might be healthier baseline if you're doing whole foods. Because even if you get the best meats, which by the way, most people aren't, like they're just going to a store and getting their meat there. They're not going to a butcher that has like specially grown cows and chickens and whatever. But then you also have the problem of like, okay, like it's really hard to eat vegan and get all your nutrients, which I agree. I've literally, I've done the thing. So this is where I kind of end in a scenario of like, what is a good median where I can get the, I can do as much whole food as possible and then supplement like with meat or something to like get that extra bit that's hard to get as a vegan. Because I'm just thinking about how, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not really sure. Um, and then, coming back to like, I went on a big tangent about food, but it's like there's the food, and then on top of the food, it's like I'm also trying to think about how I'm going to be able to eat the food that I'm eating in whatever situation I end up in traveling. And this is also like a big sticking point, is like, what foods can I get everywhere? And it's like there's no real like answer to that. um it's actually interesting that America seems to be one of the only countries that the like meats in America are so much worse than the rest of the world's meats. Um, I've had plenty of friends who have talked about how they'll eat the same types of food in a different country and they lose weight because it's just there are way better regulations in different countries. The quality of the food is just better. There are a lot of provisions to protect people from like this predatory practices of like cutting corners. Not that it doesn't happen. It's just, again, this is why I think it's so important that the legislation basically puts a baseline on how far the cutting corners can be. So legislation is the floor. And if you keep lowering the floor, you're going to get fucking awful food that isn't even really food. This is also why, as you get more and more regulations, the floor raises so that even if it's not at the highest level of quality, even right here at the base floor, it's way higher quality than in other places because you have all the regulations to prevent any of this bullshit from happening. So I think that's generally what I think is kind of happening, um, at least in America. I don't know about every other part of the world, but I've just heard it so often from friends, um, different like people that have talked about their experiences coming to America versus living in different parts of the world, where just everything there are a lot more compounds in the food in America, at least, that make it to where you have to do extra due diligence. Um, And again, I don't. This is where it's like I don't think America specifically is trying to make this happen. I think it's a symptom of a deeper issue, which is, you know, if you think about um, how America handles things, it's still a relatively young country relative to other countries. Um, and so it's not a surprise that there are major glaring issues with the political system we have. Some are intentionally set up, others are just consequences of the way things kind of have progressed over time, right? So, um, this is why I want to see massive changes happen. Um, because yeah, it's like this is how you get the malignant rot from the inside that kills people, effectively. I'm not saying literally, but I'm saying, like, if you think about it from a country standpoint, the malignant tumors that start popping up internally in a country stem from a lot of these, like, glaring, like, issues that affect large populations, affect, like, food sources, you know, general unrest about, like, the state of, like, work. It's really easy to keep suppressing how many people are actually out of work because, after a certain point, they don't count on the census anymore, and, it's like they slip under the cracks, so you just keep sweeping it under the rug, right? But, like, the vast majority of people are struggling. And, it's telling when, instead of kind of trying to genuinely help that 90-ish% of people who are struggling in one way or another, you have, like, shenanigans that are happening. I'll just say that. Focus being elsewhere. So, and again, I don't really have necessarily an easy solution, because there isn't an easy solution, right? There has to be some form of change. As to what it is, I don't know. Okay, and then circling back to, like, just, like, how I'm feeling. I don't know. It's like, I'm struggling internally. I'm struggling with, I feel directionless. And it's like I have potential directions, maybe, but they're all very vague. And it doesn't help that my mind is more fogged because of, again, all the little things like the sleeping and then the eating and then the not walking and the not going outside and the not doing this, and it all stacks. Um, so, anyway. I do want to say I apologize for the back and forth. Some days I'm feeling pretty good, and other days I'm feeling like this, and it's like, this is rough. Sorry, camera did a thing. I'm kind of ending the talk, but like, I'll just say it's embarrassing to be going through all this because I've I don't know, like I've genuinely reached a totally different perspective and understanding on reality. And I've done a lot of internal healing. And so it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of all this. I mean, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, like, anxiety. And it makes me want to seek out comfort because I feel all those things and I'm worried about feeling like I'm gonna just get fucked. I don't know, and I just where I'm currently at is not what I want. And then, I've talked about what I want, and I don't know. I've been like thinking a lot about, as I'm like listening to my book and reading it and everything. I think about how like I'm like, fuck, because almost all the books have a lot of like war or conflict or fighting and grinding for like leveling and all this stuff. And I question why I like some of the stuff I read, because it's like it's genuinely like fucked. So an example, the novel I'm currently reading, which is called Wizards Starting from the Skill Tree. It's basically wizards live on one plane, and then they basically have found out that they're in this vast, boundless expanse that has infinite numbers of planes all next to each other. And the planes have like little bubbles that kind of shield them from the void. And wizards have basically grown to a point where they go in and explore other bubbles, and when they go into the new bubble, they effectively decide if it's a cool plane worth trying to take over, and then they go in and enslave and fucking kill like the entire indigenous population, um, for in order to make a plane a resource gathering like thing. And then they use those slaves to go to the next plane and send those slaves in as the war force for the next plane war, and they just ever expand like this. Um, and I'm like, yeah, that's like fucked, obviously. Um, and I don't like that. I and part of me is like, I don't feel like that's not the type of wizard that I kind of picture. They're just basically cultivators with. So the cultivation novels have this like endless hunger to expand and consume resources and fight and all of this stuff. And so it kind of, it resembles that a bit. But yet, the exploration part, the different civilizations that they kind of encounter, all of the like interesting like advancements and research and all of this stuff, all of that is like the exciting part that I like. But I kind of hate the fact that like it always ends up being, well, we're just gonna, keep invading because we want stuff from them. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, there's got to be a better way than that. Um, and then it's like, what would be like a wizard obviously has like combat spells, but what do you use the combat spells for if you're not ever fighting? So, not obviously, you can be a wizard and like use all your spells for creation, which is totally fine. But inevitably, like, there's combat spell potential. And so it's like, what is conflict inevitably like something that just exists because it's something to do? Obviously, like, conflict comes from different different people having different perspectives and different wants and desires, and so conflict arises. And obviously, at a grand scale, different races would have different motivations and different thoughts and all of that stuff. And then thinking about it from an even broader perspective, we're all one, and conflict seems to be, at least on our planet. Now, to be fair, that doesn't mean that it's all across the universe this way. I think it's really easy for us to fall into the idea that our planet is the norm, which I don't think is true. But yeah, it's just like I I have like the desire to compete with other people. Does that mean I want to go kill them? No, of course not, right? But I don't know. It's like, part of me, it's like it feels wrong to want to like compete and fight, and yet there's this other part that just like wants to like have, you know, sling fucking wizard spells and grind experience and all of that stuff. And you know, it's like the gamer brain. Um but deep down, that's kind of like, I don't know if that's just like a human nature thing or what. But it's like, I don't know. I don't like that. Yeah, I just don't. I don't like the fact that I feel both drawn to and repulsed by the idea of like sitting down and making all sorts of cool wizard spells in order to like fight and defend myself. Um, yeah, it's just like, you know, it. The easy thing is, oh, you have some sort of invading force. Well, now you gotta fight, right? But it's kind of like the thought of like, well, you know, you're preparing to defend yourself and you're honing your combat skills to defend yourself. Um, there's inherently just something wrong with that. Or it's like, feels like I'm lying to myself about the reasons. It's like, you just want to have cool fucking wizard spells that like do damage. um you know, throwing a fireball or conjuring lightning or whatever, right? um but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, obviously life isn't a video game, so there aren't just mindless creatures swarming to try and kill us that we use fucking magic for. Um, and then I would also question, like, okay, let's just do a hypothetical. You got a huge a huge swath of different creatures all like mindlessly trying to like kill you like zombies, okay? Reveling and getting excited about grinding and killing a bunch of mindless creatures seems just like fucked, you know? Um, so it's just like I'm just questioning like this fundamental thing, because it all kind of stems from like competition, wanting to grow, wanting to advance, and obviously you can grow and advance in non-destructive ways. So I'm not saying that like that's not an option, and I can totally see a world where, you know, you do a bunch of research on like growth in order to help humanity or help other like sapient races grow and expand, you know, having like magic in order to construct and create new things. All of that's really cool. Um, it's just like, I don't know where you, like, in a peaceful scenario, where does the competition outlet go? I'm sure there are plenty of like competitive things you can do, but I think about like a lot of the video games, and in almost all of them you're killing something. It's like that's a fundamental thing. If you want to, like, as an RPG, if you want to level up, you go grind monsters, or um, you fight each other and you kill each other, or I'm just looking at like all the games that I've been playing, and it's like there are like cozy games where you don't kill things, but they're more of the minority rather than the majority. Um, so I don't know. It's like there's something just like not right about it. And I'm kind of just stuck and hung up on this, like, this weird thing. Is now, just to be clear, I don't personally don't think I've ever been like combative at all when it comes to like wanting to like fight someone with like or whatever, um for pretty much my whole life. So this is why it's also a little bit like weird, because it's like, is it just like the video game kind of thing has seeped in really hard and tried to like point out that I really enjoy, like, I like playing games like like Diablo or Path of Exile or stuff like that, where you kill a bunch of stuff, you loot a bunch of stuff, and lots of people do. Doesn't mean that they want to do that in real life, and I don't either. So it's kind of like this competitiveness. Is it basically resigned to being something that you play video games to, like, outlet? I don't know. And then does that mean that like it's important to have video games as your outlet in order for you to feel fulfilled? Or am I just trying to talk myself into playing video games? And at the same time, it's like, well, but like, the video games feel kind of like I'm wasting time when I play them. So it's the cycle, it's the loop. I'm like, fuck. Like, I don't know what to really make of all of it. I don't know, because I really do think about like how drastically different a world with like magic and stuff, or like sci-fi tech, like, it would be so astronomically different, um, that I don't know, it just changes everything. So I'm trying to understand where I stand on like morality and where I stand on my principles with this kind of stuff. And it also feels a little bit fucked to be like, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm thinking about this stuff as if, like, this is gonna happen somehow. And I'm like, am I just waiting for something like this to happen? I can't wait my whole life for something like this to happen. Um, I don't know. And then I think about the fact that, like, so many things that I've kind of skipped past on the, like, the checks of, like, normalcy, where it's like I am so far past the, like, initial checks, the sanity checks, where it's like yeah, I've assumed a lot in order to, like, have the sanity checks make sense. Um, so it's kind of like, man, I don't know. Like, this is just, I don't really know what to think. So anyway, I've fucking talked for like an hour about this stuff. Um, well, at least you guys got a long one, even though I didn't do a walk. Uh, Sleep always is a good resetter. So whenever I get into this kind of loop of thought, I'm like, okay, just go to bed, sleep, wake up, start anew. So, all right, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Okay, bye.